did the Bedford levels test and all of that. Lasers over water. But I mean, again, what is it that they are trying to prove with the laser? Are they trying to prove that the laser's level or the water's level? But what is the point of because the water level's horizontal. Like the Black Swan shows that it's just optical. Always has been.
Maybe they think that the lasers can overcome our base refraction.
Hold on a second. Can I play something that shows who you're dealing with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Go on mute.
Got nothing.
There are
Don't
no
have
models.
any.
Models are pseudoscience. I have my question now, please.
Go
for
ahead.
it.
You said you had an experiment?
Yeah.
What's the hypothesis?
What do you mean, what's the hypothesis?
Apparently, Sly Sparkane doesn't know that you have to have a hypothesis before you have an experiment. Well, an experiment is a hypothesis test.
Yeah.
So you have to have an hypothesis before you have the experiment, right?
Right.
So now Sly Sparkane agrees that you have to have a hypothesis before you have an experiment. So what, here, share his screen and let him write down what phenomena he observed, the alternative hypothesis,
Wait a minute.
the
What
independent
phenomena I observed?
dependent variable, and the null hypothesis for us,
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. You're talking about something that's happening in the future. I can't exactly show you what the observation was.
Now we have Sly Sparkane divining future natural phenomena.
No, that's it.
What's this?
No.
I've never seen it.
Before you have an experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a hypothesis.
Okay.
An experiment is a hypothesis test.
Mm-hmm.
Do you follow that? Now we have Sly Sparkane agreeing that before you have an experiment, you have to have a hypothesis. So what's your alternative hypothesis? Independent variable, dependent variable, and your null hypothesis.
Well, I will know that once I have the results.
Now Sly Sparkane thinks after you get the results from your experiment, you then provide the hypothesis. You can't, oh my goodness gracious, sir. You can't do an experiment before you have the hypothesis.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
That's correct. Now Sly Sparkane is surprised to find out that you have to have the hypothesis for the experiment. An experiment is a hypothesis test. To test the hypothesis, you have to have the hypothesis first.
Interesting.
Now, Sly Sparkane finds the concept of having the hypothesis before the experiment interesting. Isn't it? Scientific method is pretty interesting, isn't it?
Now, what if I told you that I'm going to compare this to an observation that happens every year?
I don't care what you compare it to. I want to see the alternative hypothesis, the independent variable, dependent variable, and the null hypothesis. Then we'll see the experiment.
Quantum.
Don't tell me what. Tell me what I just asked you.
No, I'm going to tell you the answer that you're going to have.
Now, Sly Sparkane is going to give us the answers, his results, before he has the hypothesis and the experiment.
Okay, this is the answer you're going to have. No, it's not. If it was chasing your tail, then I wouldn't be asking for results. I would be just giving them. Correct.
Now, Sly Sparkane asserts that we're not chasing our tail because if we were chasing our tail, he would be giving us the results, like he said he was just going to do 5 seconds before. You can't get results without a hypothesis.
Right.
So now Sly Sparkane agrees that you can't have an experiment without the hypothesis first.
And I'm going to be comparing this to a known observation.
So you're going to do, yeah, but that's not a hypothesis.
Oh, yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Let's hear it. Hold on, John.
No.
So let's hear. He's asked you, now I'm asking you, Sly. So if you've got a hypothesis, let's hear it. The cause and effect relationship, the if and then, the independent and the dependent variables. Can we hear those, please?
When I produce the video, sure.
So now Sly Sparkane is going to give the hypothesis after he's completed the experiment and when he produces the video.
No. We need to hear those before you do the experiment, because an experiment is a hypothesis test. Are you deaf as well, like Brenda? Did you not hear what was just said to you?
Nathan, check it out, man.
I asked you a question. Are you deaf? Are you deaf, Sly? It's just been explained to you.
Okay,
Yeah?
I've heard your question. Did you produce a direct hypothesis about your satellite dishes?
Now, Sly Sparkane feebly attempts to shift the burden of proof fallacy via a red herring fallacy by asking us for our direct hypothesis. Direct hypotheses don't exist. He just made it up.
A direct hypothesis, my word.
As opposed to an indirect hypothesis?
No, direct meaning concise. Excuse me.
Now, Sly Sparkane corrects himself. He didn't mean a direct hypothesis. He meant a concise hypothesis. What the hell does that even mean?
So are you saying that an experiment is not the test of a hypothesis? Is that your position?
No, I didn't say that at all.
Excellent. So let's hear your hypothesis,
let's hear your
please.
hypothesis then, yeah.
Why? So you can just nut on it?
Apparently now, Sly Sparkane has the hypothesis. He's just withholding it from us.
No,
We haven't heard it yet.
So we can write it down. We're going to write it down.
What if
We're gonna
I told you? What if I told you I'm going to be comparing, okay, the observations of however many people participate with an observation that is widely used, honestly, by flat earthers and believed to be 100% fact and true by flat earthers.
Now, Sly Sparkane is cleverly going to employ a stereotype fallacy, then invoke his special evil mind powers to divine hundreds of thousands of complete strangers' thoughts.
As well as global
Right.
earthers.
No, you can't speak to all flat earthers. How do you know what I believe?
Actually, Eraser, I can, because you got
What is-
everything else.
You haven't
What
answered
does
the
anyone's
question.
beliefs have to do with your experiment?
Right, we've got it. It's all
Well,
right.
then you'll see.
We've got a few minutes left.
It's
Sly,
comparisons.
Sly,
One
Sly.
second.
Try to
One
pay
second.
attention.
One
Sly,
second.
try to open your
Comparison.
ears, close your mouth, and open your ears. Right. An experiment is a hypothesis test. You are saying that you want people to help you in your experiment. Before
Yes,
they
sir.
do so, and before I can put my stamp of approval on your experiment, we
Doesn't
must
require you
first hear, try to shut your mouth and open your ears. We must first hear your hypothesis. So,
No, you don't.
hold on, Sly. I know you're very eager. I know you've already got to the experiment stage before presenting your hypothesis. So try and
need to.
open your ears and listen. We
Don't need to.
need, for a hypothesis, an independent and a dependent variable. Can you tell us what those are, please, sir?
Sure, when I make the video.
Now, Sly Sparkane is going to give us the hypothesis after the experiment and before he makes the video.
No, that would be after you've
Yes.
done your experiment.
So you're not going to
Before,
participate.
before, Sly, try to listen closely. I'll speak slower. Before,
Nathan, my
try to
NSAID
listen. I'll speak very slowly for slow Sparkane. You need your hypothesis before your experiment.
Yeah.
Now, Sly Sparkane again agrees that we need the hypothesis before the experiment. Yeah.
So
much for
can
the
we
experiment,
have
Sly.
it, please?
Well, this is the resistance I was expecting from flat earthers anyway. You all have a
You
nice
don't
day.
understand
Not
the
resistance, and
scientific
adherence.
method. Yeah, goodbye.
I think
did he
that's a
drop?
concession.
Let's just clear this
I can
up.
see why
Let's just
people
get it
hate
clear
him.
for the audience. Sly has just
Wow.
rage quit. Goodbye,
He's-
Sly. Good to have you, you coward. Let's just make it
That
clear
was
for
a
the
rage
audience.
quit, wasn't it?
You know, with a,
Yeah.
with a name like that,
It
Do
was a
not
concession.
participate with Sly. He is not adhering to the scientific method. He is a retard. Pretend a clown, and you will be wasting your time.
Sorry so long, but you get the picture. Thanks.
That was good. Good hearing that back.
That's what I was referring to earlier when I said I've got a button on my box for if I ever see Sly. And the button says words to the effect of, what is the independent and what is the independent and dependent variable for your water test?
Has he gotten back to us about that since then?
He didn't know he needed a hypothesis. He did, at the beginning of that conversation, Arwin, Sly was of the opinion that he could do his experiment and afterwards formulate a hypothesis. It was then explained to him, and he agreed, that an experiment's a hypothesis test. So in order to test a hypothesis, you need to know what it is. And that's what we asked him for 10 straight minutes. And at the end of it, when it got to the point that he clearly had agreed on several occasions that he understood a hypothesis test was what he was performing, but he hadn't actually delivered a hypothesis yet, he left.
But my question was after that. I don't know how long this was ago, but did he come back like, yeah, I got your experiment now, or haven't you heard anything from him since?
Did you listen? Did you just listen to what Nathan told you?
Yes, he rage quit.
I'm sorry.
That's not my point.
I'm sorry, man.
The rage quit isn't the point. The point is that at the point that he has had it beaten out of him on several occasions, that to test a hypothesis, you've got to have a hypothesis to test. And he hasn't got one. And he keeps saying, I'll provide it after the experiment. So after my hypothesis test, I'll come up with a hypothesis. It's arse about face. Now at the point that that's glaringly obvious, and it's being slowed down by me to the point where I'm saying, first comes the hypothesis, then comes the testing of that hypothesis. You haven't given us one. He says, this is the resistance I was expecting. Goodbye.
Wow. So he just doesn't want to. He just wanted to do. He just wants to do it his way.
Just wants to call
No.
a bullshit.
No, he doesn't know what here's what it is. Sly doesn't know what science is. He's a pretender clown muppet, right? That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
He thought he was doing an experiment, but he didn't know what one was. He didn't know that the hypothesis needed to come before, right? He'd failed 5th grade general science. He's a pretender clown muppet. That's the point.
Okay. Well, that point certainly came across. So I was just wondering, like, how long was this ago, and has he actually come back, or is he just spouting the same thing over and over again?
He'll probably be more careful with his
Has he actually
phraseology this
come
time.
back? He needed to provide the hypothesis before the experiment.
Right.
I'll do what I did last time, Arwin, and I'll appeal to my audience, because this is going out to the bigger channel. So, those of you watching on Nathan Oakley 1980, if you are subscribed to Sly Sparkane, the question you need to ask him is as follows. What is your hypothesis? So yeah, go and ask Sly. What's your hypothesis? If he doesn't have one, call it. Pretender clown muppet retard. What are you doing? You're just fiddling around wasting money on pipes. You don't have a hypothesis. What the hell are you doing then? Playing games with other people's money, no doubt.
He also solicited money from many people for that experiment, didn't he?
Absolutely disgusting. On another note, I'm running a GoFundMe currently. I'm e-begging for an iPad. I'm doing really well. Just a quick shout out to my wife, who's bunged me 25 quid on my own campaign. So thank you very much, Paula Oakley. Really appreciate your support. But yeah, how disgusting to solicit money to do this non-experiment that he's calling an experiment and doesn't even have a hypothesis for. It's just outrageous. And I'm saying that sincerely.
Yeah, it's called fraud.
Yeah, it's his fraud. I'm saying that with all sincerity. Me e-begging for an iPad is just a humorous aside. This is actual fraud. If you're going to claim you're doing an experiment, and then when challenged to provide the essence of the experiment, the hypothesis on which it is based, given that you are doing a hypothesis test, we'd want to know what that hypothesis was. And if you can't provide it, you're a fraudster. You're gaining money to perform what is claimed to be a scientific test, aka experiment, aka hypothesis test, and you haven't got a bloody hypothesis. It's an outrage.
I agree. Look, it should not be too hard. Even to whatever he wants to figure out some kind of hypothesis setup, for whatever he wants to do, you know. That I'd almost be inclined to just
Wait,
offer him
I'm
some help
confused.
in trying it out.
Hold on, Chocolate. Go on, Owen.
Was this before?
Hold on, Chocolate.
Was
Hold
this
on.
before? Was this before they decided that science doesn't prove things? Why are they even doing experiments? I don't even understand.
Good question. Go ahead, Owen. Just finish off your thought.
No, it's just that, look, it should not be too difficult to at least be able to try some kind of hypothesis setup for whatever he wants to do. I'd almost be inclined to help him out mentally, trying
do
out
that.
something. And
I can do that.
But-
It's just really, I've got this down pat. No problem. The way we help him out is to educate him on how you'd formulate a hypothesis.
Right.
The first step in the scientific method is to observe natural phenomena. Something occurring that you want to figure out the cause of. Now, that thing that you're trying to figure out the cause of is also known as an effect. Science exclusively deals in cause and effect reasoning. An effect in a hypothesis is known as a dependent variable, and your presumed cause of that effect is known as an independent variable, or what you will vary and manipulate as a researcher to cause the effect. So to summarize, step 1, you will observe natural phenomena, otherwise known as your dependent variable. Step 2, formulate hypothesis, otherwise known as a scientific prediction. It establishes what you observed at step 1, that would be your natural phenomena dependent variable. It also establishes what you think at this stage, because you haven't confirmed it yet, will cause that effect, your independent variable. In your hypothesis, you also have a null, the contrapositive of your assertion. If A, then B, being your alternative, assumed cause of the effect. If A, not B, would be the contrapositive, your null hypothesis, the complete contrast to what you assume causes the effect. So you assume something causes something else, you test it, and it doesn't cause it, you validate your null hypothesis. So to summarize step 2, establish what the effect is, establish what you think causes the effect, and establish the contrapositive, which is to say you will fail in your assumption that you have got the right cause of the effect. That's hypothesis construction, the thing we're asking for, prior to step 3, experimentation. Experimentation is very simple to describe. It's the actualization of the hypothesis formed at step 2. The actualization being you varying that which you assumed caused the effect you observed at step 1, and either validating your correct assumption and it actually causing that effect, or validating the contrapositive, failing to cause the effect. If A, not B, not causing what you thought it would cause with the effect you varied, with the cause you varied. That would be an experiment, or, if you're talking in scientific terminology, a test. A test in science is an experiment. It's a hypothesis test, testing an assumed cause of an effect you observed in nature. It's very simple, it's very straightforward, it's very narrow. It establishes the cause of an effect, and the prediction is called a hypothesis. The actualization of your prediction is called an experiment. Now, the problem Sparkane has at this stage is he's at step 3. He doesn't have any observed phenomena. He says that's based on something that he thinks is going to happen in the future. That's not exactly observing something happening and then trying to figure out what caused it. He's going to create something to observe. That's not a natural phenomena. He's a moron. He doesn't have an assumed cause of a non-natural phenomena either. He can't even construct his very unnatural phenomena into a hypothesis with a presumed cause. That would be him creating it in this example, but he can't even create a bullshit cause. He's just a moron. So for him to have an experiment and not be called a fraudster, he better damn well observe a natural phenomena, damn well assume he's got a cause of that phenomena, damn well vary that cause and cause the effect he observed. Because that would be an experiment. If he isn't doing that, he's a bloody fraud.